You guys have done an amazing job, and I just want to say, as a completely non-technical person, I have really enjoyed, I'm such a fan of Angular, and I'm a fan of you guys. It's been really cool to just see what this community has going on, and so all of your different perspectives have been amazing. Your transparency, I really appreciated, people kind of diving deeper on, obviously the technical stuff, but just like your experiences within the industry and the dynamics that are happening right now, and then just to see you guys interacting, I can tell that this community is really close knit. You guys have been, friends and supporting each other for a long time, and so thank you for letting me kind of, get a peek into that. We had people submit questions for this panel discussion, so what I'm going to do, there's a couple of microphones. I'm going to throw out a question and then, shoot up your hand, whoever wants to take it first. We may not be able to get through all of them. I will say question number 1 is, what would you like to ask? So I'm going to skip that one. Okay, so let's see. Question number 1, can I use IndexedDB with Angular? Then what will be the best library?
JavaScript is awesome library,
JavaScript, I saw.
JavaScript, just, best library ever.
For IndexedDB?
IndexedDB.
Well, if you use local forage is a great one. I personally use that a lot, and it's really, really good. If you want to use a library with like IndexedDB, it allows you to do IndexedDB, WebSQL, and local storage, session storage. So that one I can say for sure that's a really, really nice one.
I think NGRX platform has possibly some support or early support for IndexedDB. I don't know if Mike, Ryan, Brandon, Robbins, where are you guys at? I think it has early support for IndexedDB.
Yeah, we do have a library called ngArix/db that does have some initial port for IndexedDB. It's still a work in progress, of course, but that's what we have right now.
Love it. Thank you, guys. Okay, next question. What is the best caching mechanism in UI slide with Angular? Or UI side? Do you see it?
Caching.
Caching. Help me out.
What is the best
What is the best?
That might be spelled wrong.
caching mechanism in UI?
See, it's not me,
Yeah,
okay?
I think you might be missing an I.
Okay, we're just going to move on. When using Angular with Electron, is it possible to still have live updating? Currently using AOT compiling to preview. Editor is brackets.
Maybe.
This makes me feel so much better because I don't understand these questions either.
The answer is we don't know either. So whoever asked that question, you don't feel so bad.
I love it. Why should I use Angular over other frameworks?
Because it's amazing.
And awesome.
And awesome.
Enough said.
I feel like Tracy should be here because
Before
everyone
I give you the
is
mic, though,
drinking
I will say
Kool-Aid.
the community. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, I suck at the community and also the amount of information out there. Not only does Angular create great docs, but there's tons of articles by people like you, people like us, and I mean it's perpendicular to the community, but also it allows you to not worry about everything else. I feel like a lot of the frameworks are trying to make it simpler and not include all the pieces. But as a company, you want to just keep doing your features, and if you don't worry about all that stuff, then you can be more successful.
Also, you're at an Angular conference, so someone's already decided.
I said so.
It might just be my opinion. I think there are a couple of other frameworks out there that are really good and might even be easier to learn in the beginning. But I think in the long run, I would say that Angular is probably more powerful for larger scaling, especially in an enterprise. So you might start out with something that's easier to spin up quickly and use, and I won't say which, but y'all know what I'm talking about. But in the long run, Angular's got a lot more power under the hood.
Last thing, truly cross-platform, so you can take your code, use it with anything. Angular elements, of course, allow you to use it with all kinds of languages, so you're not cornered.
And and as well as that, Angular is also not afraid to kind of rethink what they've done. I mean, if you guys have ever had, one version not work, when you upgrade, it's a hassle, but at the same time, that's kind of the price of progress, right? So I think it's a really good thing that we're constantly like rethinking, the actual framework itself and improving upon it.
I love it. Okay, so since we're drinking the Angular Kool-Aid right now, we will keep going with that. Where's the question I just saw? Okay. How is Angular pushing the design of modern applications? What are some of the coolest design challenges you've seen recently in the Angular community?
I really want the WebGL woman to talk about this. When I worked at Nike, we used WebGL to do some 3D imaging, and it was so awesome, but also extremely challenging. I'd like to hear your thoughts about that.
So many mics. So I think Angular is pushing this forward because now you can create your own application building this. So if you have ever used WebGL before, it sounds like you understand some of the struggles. Trying to build an application with that was extremely tough. And so we know all the benefits of using Angular for actual web app development. And so now you're combining that with, amazing libraries. 3JS would remove a lot of those struggles. And I know that because I started using WebGL before you had some of those libraries, so the struggle is really real. But if you combine that with Angular, now you're actually building scalable applications that are VR enabled.
I'm interested to see the animation stuff as it keeps getting bigger and bigger. There's this thing that Ben Lesh did with combining observables with animations, because he was like, what is an animation? It's just a set of motion over time, and what is an observable? It's a set of stream of data over time. And it was like a little research thing. That is really interesting to see. I'm hoping to see what they do there.
All right, next question. When starting a new Angular CLI project, how to install from local global installation instead of over slow network?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
I will repeat it again. When starting a new Angular CLI project, I guess, how do you install from a local global installation instead of over a slow network?
Yeah, I think that would be an NPM type. I think there's some offline features of NPM where you'd be able to download a certain set of packages that you're using to create some sort of local cache. I know that NPM and Yarn are both working towards creating local caches. There's nothing specifically in the CLI for that. We have toyed with some ideas of how to make global installs faster and lightening the dependencies as well on local installs to improve those performances, so that in an area where the network speeds aren't great, that it will be easier to install and create new applications. Also, there's a flag when you create ng, or when you do ng new, that strips out a lot of the dependencies mostly for like demo type applications, as I see, or just playgrounds. It's called minimal. So if you knew the name of the application -- minimal, you don't get any test files, you don't get any karma dependencies, any protractor dependencies. I'm sorry that we're talking about not testing, but just for like prototypes or any type of playground, that will lower the amount of dependencies that you need. And maybe potentially also talked about the idea, nothing concrete, I'm not promising anything, of potentially loading those types of dependencies on demand. That initially when you create an application, all right, well, haven't written any tests, you're not trying to run any tests yet, so we're not going to add those dependencies up front. So maybe talking about like lazily including dependencies for different features within the CLI, so it's not this whole monolithic type thing, but more of an on-demand type approach.
That's what I was going to say too.
Ditto. Me too. Okay, so shifting from kind of the technical to some more of the diversity and inclusion topics that we've been talking about. This question says, the pay gap is currently 53% for Latino women and 64% for African American women. How have you advocated for pay equality at your company?
I can speak. Oh, somebody else down there?
We'll get to everybody on this one.
I can. It was like first. Or second.
I want to say, because I have I have a slightly different take on this. I think so first of all, I personally don't like myself being put into a group. I see myself as an individual, and that's what I love about this industry. And I know that it's an opinion which is slightly different than what a lot of people think here. But on top of being a female, I'm also an immigrant. And what I have found that really works for me is you just know what you want, and then you go get it. As far as salaries are concerned, throughout the companies that I've worked with, I have seen that a lot of men get paid less than what I get. And I was surprised when we were having discussions about that. And it really came down to that, what went wrong? And I think back at especially the salary, I think it really comes down to, can you sit across from the table and negotiate? And I think that's what it really comes down to. And I have seen a lot of men that don't know how to negotiate. And a lot of times I think it's more like a confidence issue than belonging to a certain community or gender thing. Because I think I'm an example where I would say that I make enough salary that keeps me satisfied, and I have never had problems throwing numbers and justifying why I should be paid that amount.
And I'll actually add on to that as someone who's a little bit newer to the industry. I came from the theater world where they would say, here's $300 for 3 months of your work. So coming into an industry where I, not only doubled my salary from being an office manager by day, but just not knowing that negotiating was a thing, I was very lucky that Hackbright, the all-female software engineering school that I went to, had people come in and had people talk on that and give us the resources to do that. I would say if you are looking to hire junior engineers who are coming perhaps from a boot camp background, who have been in roles before where negotiation was not a thing, that can be sales, that can be admin, that can be anything like that, when you give an offer, to kind of help with the mentorship for that. Obviously, it's in your benefit to get them at the cheaper price, but also if you mentor anyone, that's probably one of the most important conversations you can have with your mentee.
And as an employer, right, I'm an employer. I co-founded WebJunto with my co-founder Liz. We owned the company 50-50, and when we started the company, transparency was a big part for us, and inclusion and diversity. So one of the things that we did, and we can't take full credit for this, we stole it from Buffer app, if anyone's heard of that company, is we have everything about our company transparent. Every single person knows exactly how much money I make, how much money every other team member makes. We have a 12% profit share across the company. Every single team member who joins the company, they see before they join, they see what everyone's making, what all the options are, and they get to choose what they want. Do they want more equity? Do they want more salary? And then they get to see how we justified salaries for everyone else, right? Why does this person make this much? And then how can I get there? So, a lot of change also has to come from an employer standpoint of understanding, like, hey, we need to make these policies good for everyone. And that's been really successful for us. And we have about 24 people now, so that's been pretty cool.
I think I kind of want to work for you.
You're hired.
I just want to say I spent quite a few years working professionally before I became a developer, and I worked really hard to prove myself because I wanted to make more money and I wanted to get ahead, and I kept being told to sit down and shut up and go make us some more coffee, honey, and it frustrated me so much. And in my personal experience, code has been the great equalizer, and I won't name names, but there was a guy that I worked with years ago who was really condescending, and most of the guys I work with have been really awesome, right? But that one guy who was really condescending didn't treat me very well, and then after I worked there for about 6 months or a year and I started kind of doing the Angular rockstar thing, that guy had to come to me and ask me for help with his code, and it made me real happy.
Definitely sounds like everyone's experience. It's not going to be one size fits all, and it's a little bit of both. It's the employer and the employee kind of, navigating with, I guess, as much integrity as possible on both sides.
Yeah, one thing that I've done is to compile a salary history, because I've bounced around the Bay Area and ended up at Netflix, and just have a salary history and being willing to share that, because I know when you sit down and negotiate, if you don't know what number you should have, you have no idea. It's very hard to negotiate, but to actually talk to people and be open with others about your salary history and their salary history, to kind of be able to come to the table with an understanding of what you really want. So if you get lowballed, be like, no, and walk away.
And so I want to answer that question from a few different perspectives. If you are at a company and you have the influence and you see that there is someone whose salary is not kind of at the right level that they should be for whatever their role is, speak up. Don't let that person leave your company because you didn't speak up for that person. I've definitely had opportunities to do that. As an employer, to your point, kind of standardize around a range for roles and levels. And that keeps people from being too different in their role. And then on another level, as a community, we can mentor each other. We can mentor people through negotiating. There are a lot of, to your point, I think there are a lot of confidence issues, imposter syndrome, just cultural issues that we bring to the table when we're negotiating. And having someone mentor you and say, no, you can ask for what you're worth. First of all, you should know whatever that is, and you can ask for that, I think is hugely important.
I always say do your research before you come to the table. You can, it's like everybody else say, like Glassdoor tells you what your position pays in your area. So come to the table with an idea of the number you should be making, and you don't always have to take the first offer. You can push another little piece of paper with another number on it and be like, no, I was thinking about this number here.
Yeah, never take the first offer.
Glassdoor has been historically low, so take that as a bottom
with
and
a
not
grain of
top,
salt,
yeah.
but like you can get an idea, and
Absolutely,
come to the
yeah.
table. Yeah.
Do your research.
Yeah, do your research.
All right, one more comment on this one.
Start off high and let them come down. That's what you should do.
This This was a really good question, and one more thing that I just wanted to add real quick, and I think all of us on stage can probably speak to this. My personal experience, my rate went up pretty high when I started actually getting involved and participating in the community. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you might want to start like speaking at local meetups, because
Or
it helps
your
a lot.
local Angular conference, just saying.
Ooh.
And if you don't have a local meetup, start a meetup.
Create one, yes. Kind of along the same topic. Okay, it says hiring is a real issue for my company. We have a great product with a great vision for the future, but we are struggling to find people. For the Atlanta area specifically, are there a lot of companies fishing in the same pond? How do you go about finding good candidates? Can I answer that one? I think that you can have the microphone. Yeah,
Who
I
is
think
this
that you
guy,
get
and
it.
did he give a talk? Is he a speaker?
Yeah, round of applause.
That's why I'm not speaking. I mean, if you look at this, don't expect them to come to you. Get out of your chair, find them.
And also look remote. If you look remote, your chances of finding somebody are like magnified so much.
I would say take advantage of the community. I've heard of there being at least 2 Angular-related meetups in the area. There may be more. Get up. Doesn't cost a lot of money. Buy some pizza. Show up. Talk about your company. Let you promote yourself. Go out, as Zach said. Find them. Go to a meetup. Sponsor a meetup. Buy 5 pizzas to find good talent.
Just to add to your point about the community, that's very, if you actually look at the Angular community, like even Mike yourself, you're a contributor, and now you're actually working with, like if you look at it, most of the people in this conference at some point they were either directly contributed to the community or just submitting issues or anything like that. So once you just get into that community bracket, it just opens up a whole new, like if you're looking for a job or you're looking to hire somebody, there's somebody, you probably know somebody that knows somebody. It's always like, so I think it's just to touch on your point, like yes, the community thing is really, really important if you want to get the really good guys like me, yeah.
And also pay well. I mean, if you've ever studied economics, if you have a supply issue, you increase the price. Pay more and people will come to you.
I'll also add, as someone, I mean, I graduated from a boot camp less than a year and a half ago. The great thing about these boot camps is that these new grads that come in, I mean, obviously if you're hiring, this wouldn't be for a senior role, but these are people who are very malleable. They can learn very, very quickly. Also, there are a lot of boot camp grads in other cities that are looking for opportunities. So if you're willing to give relocation services, that's a great way to ramp someone up. Like, obviously, you have to do the investment of the first couple months to really get them where they need to be, but a lot of the women who've graduated from my boot camp, you know, a couple years ago are now in senior roles, so really invest in those opportunities to level up people.
I talked a little bit in my talk about job descriptions, so I just wanted to say some of the job descriptions that I get sent by companies or recruiters are like totally bananas, like super long, and have like really specific technologies listed. I think that that doesn't necessarily like say I'm going to be successful in the role. And also, I was at the Women Who Code conference a few years ago, and somebody was speaking about women in tech, and they said that men will apply to a job if they meet 4 out of 10 of the requirements, and women will only apply if they meet like 6 to 8 out of 10. So just having too many requirements sometimes can decrease the candidate pool.
I think that goes along with the negotiating that we talked about earlier. I think it's kind of the same mindset that women may come to the table with as well in that.
So simply I would say that grow up your talents yourself. So this is what we do in Velar Software. We grab new talent like trainees, and we invest in like half of a year in them to mentor, to teach them, to find the new talents. So everybody tries to find somebody already, somebody who knows everything. It's not happening like that. You go and grab students, give them a chance, give them an opportunity. They may use it, might not, but at least you'll have a folks who already know the things. And if you want to bring the attention of a community to your company as an employee, outsource things. Because, we are developers, we love outsource.
And I wouldn't require a CS degree as well. A lot of times when I was applying, even for my second job, there were a lot of filtering softwares that would just automatically put me out of the running because I was not currently enrolled for an internship when I was first searching, or because I don't have a computer science degree. And I mean, you can probably survey a lot of people here, and a lot of us are either self-taught or have done a boot camp or what have you. So my theater degree did not prove useful in that situation. But a lot of times, actually, I won't name the company, but a couple months ago, I went to a conference where they said, oh my God, we would love to hire you. Like, are you looking for a job? And I just looked at them and said, that is so funny. I applied to your company and your recruiting software gave me a no within 20 minutes. Like, I would have loved to have worked at XYZ company. So work with your recruiters, be really mindful of the job description. That's really key. But also make sure that your recruiters, having been a former recruiter, if someone gave me a job description that said they need to be really experienced in Python, I don't know what that is. Like, I have no context, so really sit down with your recruiters, tell them exactly what you're looking for, and let them know that you're open to people, who may have a non-traditional background, or are open to people who may have only 2 years of this skill versus 5, because as a recruiter, not having the context, a lot of experience can mean 20 in a lot of other industries.
I love it. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. This question says, can we all work together to develop an open source JavaScript-based AI so that we don't have to pay anybody to use their stuff?
Sometimes there's value in paying for something, because a community-run effort can be really fantastic, and you can get a lot of value out of it, but at the end of the day, somebody has to maintain it. There are issues. And it's hard to rely on a solely community effort, I think, sometimes. So sometimes there's value in paying for something.
It's called TensorFlow. You can use TensorFlow or PyTorch. Both are Python-based if you are interested in machine learning. There are options. They're just not JavaScript, because JavaScript's bad with numbers.
There is a JavaScript one. I don't remember the name anymore, but it starts with an S. And does anyone know it?
Yeah, there's a couple attempts to try and use TensorFlow from WebGL and just use TensorFlow.
Just Google S.
Okay, let's see. When can we wrap our Angular libraries and apps as web components? And could there be an online repository where those components could be shared?
With enough of fantasy, you already can, because there are already existing prototypes which do exactly the same thing, done by Robert, I suppose. By Rob, forgive me. Yeah, so he already did it, and actually you already can wrap your components and expose them as, custom elements. But I suppose compiling to web components will be not like in this year for sure.
Stencil.
Yeah,
Stencil.
Yeah.
Stencil. 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 Oh.
Yeah, well, Stencil supports it all, basically. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Check out what Ionic's doing with Stencil. It's really cool.
Yeah, Stencil is definitely an option that's currently available. In terms of packaging libraries and not just a specific component, I mentioned during my talk that the build system is going to support the idea of building a library and publishing that out as a repository for where to find those, NPM. There's no sense in creating a separate repository or anything else. Get it out on NPM to be able to publish a library. Your point, Angular elements will be a way to write Angular components and to be able to package them up and deploy them as essentially custom elements within the browser.
All right, the next question is one word. It says Polymer, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Where? Angular, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation.
Mic drop.
If you want to use a framework and you like using it, just use it. This is an Angular conference. Most of us are probably comfortable and like using Angular, but if you like using Polymer, you can.
Use Angular.
Yeah, as you said, you are at an Angular conference. Polymer is a wonderful framework to be able to create components. React, Vue, Ember, they're all great frameworks. There's a lot of good choices out there. Oh, sorry. I'm not saying jQuery. No, I'm not going to say it. But there's a lot of frameworks out there, and they all do really good things. And the one thing that I like is that there's communication across those teams. Best practices. The idea of NGRX came out of Redux, which came out of React, and that's a concept that's come across reactive programming. The Angular CLI grew out of the Ember CLI. So there's cross idea sharing across all of them, and all of the frameworks are improving because of the improvements of other frameworks as well.
You can typically do anything in any framework, right? Just some frameworks are optimized for certain things and some are optimized for other things, right? So it's really, what are you looking to do? A lot of times when we look to build something, we'll first look at the actual business requirements and then we'll decide the technology to use, as opposed to just automatically deciding the technology. And that can be helpful, as long as you have the skills for that, right? I'm not saying just start doing something in PHP if all you know is, JavaScript. Like that doesn't really make sense, right? But, you can really do anything.
The framework is important, but to the point of what Randall made during his talk, the users are more important than the technology you use to deliver it.
I want to make a point. I wanted to say this earlier, but I couldn't. Generally, with Angular, what I really like, and I have heard about a lot of other frameworks also, and it's not because I am speaking at an Angular conference. For enterprise level, it works really well because what it gives you is a tight control over consistency. So a lot of these other frameworks are great, but a lot of times what happens is you run into the same problem that I was talking about in my talk yesterday, is that you reach a level where you can't scale, you can't maintain consistency. So that it's opinionated, it's kind of good for larger teams because then it's easier to enforce standards.
All right, staying on the technical questions, let's see. How involved are QA testers when a coding shop has adopted a 3x3 or similar deployment cadence?
3x3.
Can you read that again? Yes. How involved are QA testers when a coding shop has adopted a 3x3 or similar deployment cadence?
That's a pretty specific question. I think
What
that
is
might
3
be.
by 3?
Yeah.
I think they
I was
just.
hoping you all would know.
So if the question is just how are QA engineers and QA testers involved with releasing things, then I think they're very crucial. I was a QA engineer before I was a developer, and writing automated testing and just being able to push a button and run those tests and verify that the app works is going to speed up your release cycles, and you're going to be iterating way faster. So very important.
There's so much variety from one team to the next. I've seen so many different companies handle QA completely different. That's kind of a hard one to answer in a general way.
But you really need to work like directly with each other. You know, if honestly, because I've worked on both sides. I used to be a tester and then I was a developer. I mean, if you don't treat the QA team with respect, it's going to bite you in the ass, really, because you know, like they're going to be reporting these things for you. They might not understand the application the same way you do. You might not understand the business requirements the same way they do, right? So you guys really got to work together, and if you work together, then you'll have a good product.
QAs and developers should be friends.
Yeah.
They should have lunch together. They should like have hangouts together and work together and compare notes. They're both more efficient if they do.
Did we have a couple down there?
Yeah, as someone who worked as a quality engineer for 6 years, we'll say, when I've worked at places that had like continuous deployment, like really fast release schedules, it was really important to have test automation at all of the different stages. So setting up something like Git hooks whenever someone pushes to run all the unit tests was super important. And then as soon as someone opens a pull request, set up a pull request build that checks out that merge branch and runs all the automated tests there so we can catch right before the merge if anything's kind of funky. And then obviously doing automated tests on all the different environments, testing, staging, and production, probably just doing manual smoke tests for the most part. That just really speeds up the process and makes sure we catch as many bugs as we can before we go to production. So yeah, automate, automate, automate.
Oh, and another piece of advice, if you guys work directly with clients, don't even tell them that testing is an option, right? Just like put it in the scope and be like, in order to build what you are asking for, this many hours must be had, right? Because clients always like to be like, oh, well, we don't really need that, right? Especially when you're working with small and middle-sized businesses. You know, enterprise, they have a full appreciation for it, but yeah, just my personal advice.
And if you ever have a QA person that says, I kind of wish I could be a developer, then you go, I got you, fam, and you empower them, and then all of a sudden you have a new developer.
Also, I want to kind of piggyback on making sure that QA engineers are friends with your engineering team. So we have a continuous deployment schedule. We do both manual and automated testing, and our teams are cross-functional. So everybody on that team takes the feature all the way to production. And so our QA engineers are involved from the very beginning. They're working with the engineers when we're doing feature planning to come up with test plans. So they know exactly what's coming. It's not one of those, it's the end of the sprint and the QA engineers all by themselves. So I think that's important to make sure they're involved throughout the life cycle of the feature.
All right, let's see. Where are we? Where do I want to go? Where was I? I've been jumping around, so now I do where I am. Okay. That was I know, but I've been like jumping all around, so now they're all like blending together. Okay, when starting a new, no, I already tried to do that one. Let's see, Angular inputs and outputs are used to pass data from parents and children. How often is a message bus pattern deployed in Angular applications for communicating with cousins, grandparents, etc.? Does RxJS make this easy to do? What's going on?
Yes.
I would say using inputs and outputs is a pretty crucial part of doing component communication. If you're doing that like at a local level, if you're using something like NGRX store, then that gives you that same ability to do that at a higher level. But you'll still be making extensive use of that pattern of passing data down through inputs and interacting with external components through outputs, just because that's the way they were meant to be. You're meant to like compose these components together to be able to pass that data around.
I would say if you're anything like me, when you first start using some of this stuff, if you don't know what you're doing, you could accidentally make it a whole lot more complicated than it needs to be. And the recent versions of Angular are beautiful. They handle so much of this stuff for you that if you know how to do it, it does not take that much code, and it just handles all that change detection for you. And you don't want to try and write stuff that's already built in under the hood. This is something I know something about.
Yeah, so Bonnie gave a pretty good point. Actually, this thing with the message bus is very tightly related to architectural pattern that Nicholas Zakis introduced maybe 10 years ago. He introduced this like a sandbox where each component is communicating through a publish-subscribe pattern, and that's what actually we're trying to prevent doing for the last couple of years, because at some point everything gets very tangled. Like there are very implicit dependencies, there are some circular dependencies. It's just very hard to track the flow of your application, and that's why. Well, after that, this was a little bit reduced in libraries like frameworks like Backbone, where we are following more of a model view, like whatever model. So, and after that, the next level of the evolution was the flux pattern, which was introduced by Facebook in F8, I think. So we are going to this unidirectional flow right now, just because it's so much more predictable to see what's happening in your application. When your inputs are coming from the parent, it's just so much obvious what's happening around. So, yeah.
If you're using RxJS and you're having any problems trying to get something updated in the DOM, check out the async pipe. And if you're ever looking for something kind of similar to the old scope.apply, but in the newer Angular, stop, back up, take a deep breath, and just back away, because it's going to do that for you.
Okay, next question. What would you consider as the biggest disadvantage of PWA?
No disadvantage. It's awesome. Just do it.
Well, still, they're awesome, and they're very easy to develop because we're using like technologies that are familiar to us. But in the same time, they're running in some sandbox, and like we're not writing browser code, we're still writing JavaScript, and this thing needs to go through the JavaScript virtual machine. So yeah, they may not eventually perform as well as native apps all the time.
I think too, keep an eye on Apple, because it looks like their implementation seems to always be missing a few key specs. So, I mean, until Apple is the full spec, then you just got to keep your eye on it.
Of course, PVA is awesome, but always make some eject button, because sooner or later you will get in a situation when your PVA doesn't handle updates of updated bundles, and you will get in trouble. So, in that case, make sure if something goes wrong with PVA inside of it, it just erases itself. But, you know, application continues to work at least.
And the last question, what have you guys enjoyed most about the ngAtlanta conference?
Food.
Our friends. We got to see our friends. We got to make some new friends.
Yeah. I'll say that, well, we can go around if you want to.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. There's so many things. This is my first time in Atlanta. It's such a cool city, and it's really great to be here and to be with so many smart people with different perspectives and excellent experience. I don't know. I'm just really happy to be here. So thank you, guys.
I would say speakers and talking to people, and just one reason I sign up for these speaking sessions is kind of reminds me of where I am. And when we are busy working every day, we feel we are part of a team or a company. But when you come out there, just like this is it. We belong here, so that's cool.
For me, I've said this many times during this conference, but the community is the best part of Angular. And when Zach, talked to me about the conference, it was something that was really exciting to me. I proposed a question to him like, it's kind of sad that not sad that we have to have a conference like this, but to bring so many awesome people together in one place at one time, and for everyone in the world to be able to see that was like really awesome to have. And I hope this continues to, this is not just a blip in time, but something that we can continue to build on and move forward. So that was the biggest part that I thought was great about this whole conference.
The pretzels were really great. I liked those a lot. No, I really enjoyed the community a lot, and I really liked not only the diversity in the speakers, but also the diversity in the talks. In particular, I really enjoyed the very technical talks, and I also really enjoyed Kim's talk on not giving non-technical talks. This is very confusing to say out loud, but just the efforts that were made to really make this an inclusive conference was my favorite part.
Yeah, for me, definitely the diversity and the inclusiveness of this conference. Because I don't know who I was telling this yesterday. I said this is the Angular conference that will be like a marker for all other conferences. Because I remember speaking to Zach about it even before I submitted the paper. I'm just like, I want to be a part of this because there's so many things that have been done in this conference that just highlight a lot of things in a positive way. And I think I'm lucky enough to go to a lot of these Angular conferences, and this will be a marker. It's this is how it's done, and it's the first time. I'm really, really proud that it really went well as well. So for me, that one.
So first, I just want to say welcome to Atlanta. I love introducing new people to the city. So thank you, Zach, for giving so many people the opportunity to see not just Atlanta, but our community. And as someone who's really active in our local tech community, the speakers were amazing. And to bring this caliber of speaker to Atlanta, so many of them, so very diverse, so very inclusive, I think it's just amazing to be able to bring that, like you said, to one place has been amazing.
Well, I have a list. It was a nice venue. The food was good. The speakers are dope. The community is awesome. Zach is amazing. And shout out to Zach. And I'm glad that we were able to get together and share information and knowledge with each other.
I mean, I'm just going to piggyback on what a few people have said already. It's an amazing community. I've only been involved in the Angular community briefly for a year and a half, and I'm always overwhelmed by how just positive and welcoming everybody is. But I also really just love the mission of this conference. Like Sunny said, it's about diversity and inclusion, and it can be so sometimes isolating to be a woman and going to a tech conference, and I just love that this is trying to just totally bust that stereotype. So thank you very much, Zach, and thank you everybody for coming and being a part of it. It's been awesome.
Can I say, we have some behind the scenes, Sunny and Shiloh, Zero Slope events. And guys, can we get a round of applause for the AV crew?
I can continue. Yeah, so I cannot use more beautiful words than everyone that has everything that has been said already. But I'd also like to celebrate everyone that has joined this conference because that's really beautiful, right? While I was talking with Zach about the conference, one of the questions that I had was, will we see only women at this conference? Because many times when we're talking about diversity, what happens is that you'll see a table of people talking about diversity, and almost 100% of them are going to be women or people that are actually in the diverse group. So I was just wondering, are we going to see men supporting this as well? And I'm happy that this is happening. And I'd also like to call out, I've met Wendy here. I'm not sure if Wendy is still here. She's absolutely fantastic. She's based in Alpharetta, and I really liked how she reached out to everyone. She talked to everyone. She approached people from Dominic and Brandon and Mike and John Papa and everyone. So I'd like to encourage everyone to do that, but I want to celebrate Wendy in particular.
Okay, so I like the conference really a lot, and the diversity was really great. I also met so many interesting things so many interesting people that I was able to discuss interesting topics with, for instance, like dynamic programming for breakfast, or discuss, let's say, backend inspired by Angular with a lot of the creators for dependency injection and like other declarative things. Like, it was really great. Met so many interesting people and had so many interesting conversations.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about conferences. This is not the conference of the most people, but I hope in the future that it will grow faster than any conference out there, and that all conferences grow. But I wish that more like new speakers came on. I am like fairly new to speaking, and I think a lot of this speaker panel is as well. And you can join us, or we can take the seat, and you can take the stage.
No, I want. I have a lot of I think that everyone said just literally everything that I was going to say. I was going to key off that it's really nice to be, like, I'm a new speaker as well, and it's just nice to be in a community where everyone's been so nice and you feel like people are rooting for you. I think that's something that is like kind of how you succeed, is that you have people around you who are like rooting for you and believe in you, and like that's just really nice to have and like have around you. And then the other thing, since everyone said everything that I knew, is like, I maybe mentioned it a few times, but like about the CSS and HTML and how those get like propagated out was like by far my, like, I've never thought about it. It was very exciting to learn. So that's like, I'm gonna like jump off from everyone else and say that that was like top 5. That was great.
To Simona's point, when are the men going to get involved? That was the reason I got involved, was the diversity. I'm the father of 2 young daughters, so I want to be able to facilitate a community that will be welcoming to them as they get older. What I really enjoyed most about the community is not only the promotion of everybody else, but to use something that I learned earlier today, not just hearing the explicit knowledge, but also the tacit knowledge coming from different perspectives of the different speakers with their different backgrounds, as diverse as it is, to get a different perspective of the different technologies and how it affects everybody. So it was great to hear that.
So it was always nice to dust off the helmet and see Zach again, and that was a lot of fun. And something that just really impressed me is just how many things went right. This is a first-time conference, and I was just impressed at how many things that, like, conferences that have been going on for years just completely miss, just behind the scenes, all that. So again, shout out to just all the people who run around behind the scenes making sure that we have an amazing conference. Oh yeah, AV, the food crew, Zach, all the volunteers, you're amazing.
I was prepared for it to be a disaster.
I was going to say from you all, I did workshops the first 2 days, and every time you guys come up and ask a question, you ask really good questions, and it's really that I think is super rich for us. And thank you, for coming to the table with wanting to know and wanting to question what we're doing.
Yeah, for me, it's being in a room with people who know a lot more than I do, right? And if I have any advice to give to you guys, right, if you guys want to be up on stage here, know that all of us, we Google the same Stack Overflow questions that you guys do, right? We really do, right? None of us know everything, and the only thing that really can get you up on stage and to make you the expert is you just gotta say to yourself, I am an expert in this, and then live up to it, right? And I hope you guys do that.
I'd like to say ditto to everybody else, but just talking with everybody the past few days has been amazing. Everything's been pretty smooth, pretty great, and it's almost like inspiring or refreshing, just getting new perspective on different things, and just it makes me want to go back to my computer and just research things, and that's just such like a beautiful feeling. So I'd like to thank everybody for that. So thank you.
I love it. Oh, yes, because we skipped you.
Yeah, skip Ukrainian. As for me, like Zachary was said, he is always like about networking. So for me, this conference became like friends gathering, like making new friends, meeting old ones. So love to see you all.
I love it. All right, yeah. Obviously, Zach, you got to take a mic.
Let's hear it for our MC. Thank you again to all of our speakers who are on the panel, all the speakers who have gone home, the speakers I see in the audience that didn't make it up on time, but that's perfectly fine. We still love you. Thank you to the AV crew. Thank you to Sunny. Thank you to 31 South for all the media stuff you guys have done to us. Thank you to the amazing attendees. I mean, this is a project that started in April, and it's literally, 4 hours of sleep a night to get this pulled off, but it wouldn't be possible without you guys believing in this conference, without our amazing sponsors, and again, the speakers. I mean, thank you for believing in this, and I'm trying not to cry, but this has been amazing, and this is life-changing for me too, because we did it, and I forget who said, like, this is a flag in the sand. I mean, Brad Grisner was mentioning that to me earlier. Like, this is hopefully the standard that other conferences begin to hold themselves to. And we looked at our audience, and our audience was incredibly diverse as well. And that's fantastic to see. And I hope to see you all next year. We're going to be opening the CFP here in a couple weeks. So, if you ever have any inclination to speak, spoken or not, if you've never spoken before, we have mentors. All these speakers up here, a vast majority of them, will mentor you. Even if you've never done it, try, we will help you. I want to see some new faces up here. It would be amazing. Thank you.